Here we go. Welcome everyone. My name's Laura Thompson. Pleasure to host here webinar 22, the title of which is Getting Ready to Make New Decisions. This part forms the final part of our fourth series, Be Like a Tree. So without further ado, oh, one sec, I've just got a call coming through. Hello. Can I do that? No, I can't do that. Can I make in September? No, I'll do that. No. Can I do something the week up? No, I can't do that. No. In fact, can we just leave it a couple of years for me to work out what's happening? Then I can make a decision. I'll speak to you in 2022. What's happened? We've been locked in. Our decision making has potentially become a bit unnoticed. And if, like people that I've been chatting with, myself included, suddenly there's this whole array of decisions and dilemmas. And so the purpose of this session is to kind of get back in the game and think, right, let me flex some of my decision making muscle once more. And what I'm hoping is whether this is for yourself or for you to share with others, juicy bits of content that can help bring this really important skill and hone that to make it as sharp and as useful as possible right now. So these sessions are designed to reboot confidence, energy, motivation. This is my colleague Deb's of her used phrases. In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. So let's have a look at some concepts that are going to help us deal with what's going on right now. That's the aim anyway. Do I stay or do I go? Do I rebook that cancelled holiday or do we just try to cancel it? Do I speak up about something or do I just keep quiet because I'm not sure how the land lies right now? Part of handling major change is dealing with some of that lack of certainty that typically would enable a confident prediction or decision to be made. Even before this year had started, it was becoming apparent that the ability to make decisions was absolutely going to be a hot skill for this new, increasingly automated decade ahead. We'll look at some things a little bit later. And when we've been out of the game for a while, depending on your current work situation, it can be a stretch to have to think quickly again. So suddenly it takes hours to think about what you're going to maybe do that in previous times you would have just, absolutely like a cheetah, 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. You've been able to think and predict and make decisions much quicker. The good news is that us humans were natural born problem solvers. It's just about flexing that muscle. So time to get ready. What we're going to cover on this session, getting ready for new decisions. Like always, the aim is for this to be judgment free, one size fits one. Take the stuff you like, ditch the stuff you don't like, share the stuff and make it your own with the things that you think actually that could work for me and maybe some of the people around you. As always, focused on what we can do. And the goal for this is to boost our energy, confidence and motivation. And the 3 things we're going to look at today are: how do I maximize the confidence to make decisions and even spot opportunities for decisions in the first place? If you found yourself saying, no, can't do that for the last X amount of weeks, how do we start saying, well, actually, maybe I could? How do I therefore search and scan what needs attention to address some of these challenges in a sustainable context? And how do I keep rational and grounded when handling maybe some pretty complex or untested decisions and dilemmas? Because I could have been awesome at making decisions and resolving dilemmas quickly this time last year, but a lot has changed in a year and I need to channel maybe the mindset of a fox in times of flux, which is forever learning, continuous improvement, as to maybe more of a stuck, comfortable, yet vulnerable panda mindset. So the first thing we're going to look at is, how do I get confident to make decisions and opportunities? So I always like to go back to the root. What is confidence? Well, it's the state of being clear-headed, that the prediction you're about to make is correct, or your chosen course of action is the best. It originates from the Latin word fidere, which means to trust. Therefore, having a self-confidence is having trust in oneself. And even now, just opening the door might require a few more deeper breaths than maybe this time last year. Even the confidence in what the journey is going to be like, that could have been an unthinking journey a couple of months ago, now might actually have to really draw on some reserves of confidence that might be a bit new. So how do we get confident? Well, one of the things that can be worthwhile right from the start is to have a think at, well, what is the task that is ahead? So one of the things that I've been interested in for a while is decision making, complex, discretion based. So where there's lots of grey areas, is likely to be a high paid skill and a valuable skill in the decade ahead. Machines are increasingly making more of the simple binary decisions in everyday life. So for example, the Moley kitchen robot, I was there for one of the launches of this in 2016, a couple of years ago, the one they had in London anyway. There are 2,000 recipes included in these robotic arms. How they've made that is they've put these sensor gloves onto award-winning chefs, and those award-winning chefs have done the moves, and the robot then is able to copy and replicate those moves, including some iconic signature dishes. So wow, this robot not only cooks, but it tidies up as well. However, it wouldn't be able to salt or season it depending on taste, or depending on whether a particular ingredient was less or more salted than usual. So there are absolutely certain situations where we need that human nuance. Can a machine make the decision? Yes or no? If the machine can make a decision, I'm all sorted. If the machine can't make the decision, I need a human, please. So the reason why getting our decision-making muscle is useful is not only right now to handle this too shall pass, it also will be a useful professional skill, because the easier decisions in our work life are likely to start to become more automated, leaving the more trickier ones for us to solve. So it's a useful skill to practice in our wider professional life, as well as it being an immediate kind of useful skill right now. So knowing what is required to help us think straight. Is this a decision or is it a dilemma? And understanding that certain challenges are genuinely tough. They're meant to be tough. They're given a word in its own right, dilemma, can sometimes increase the self-confidence to give it a go, because no one would find it easy. That's why it's called a dilemma. So what is a decision? It's reaching a conclusion or a resolution after some consideration. It's the action of deciding something or resolving a question. So, shall I take an umbrella out with me today or not? Be considered a decision. The key difference between a decision and a dilemma is where a dilemma comes from the Greek term double proposition, which basically is a scenario where I've got to choose option A or B, and none of them are particularly appealing. So a dilemma is where any solution is not going to be particularly wanted. It's the least worst. So for example, should I stay in this boring but safe job, or should I leave for an exciting but unknown one? Potentially that's a dilemma. Both involve a bit of nervousness and a bit of risk, but the dilemma is that we maybe are torn between two options, and neither seems a particularly easy decision at the moment, outcome. The dilemma is a tough choice. And when options are equally bad, it could be said you're stuck in a dilemma. And it's not pleasant for us humans to be stuck in a dilemma. Other words for it include a quandary, double bind, when someone in a position of power is giving us maybe some contradictory messages. This can create a state of perplexity where we get troubled or confused from complexity. All of these things, of course, impact our confidence, the certainty of what I'm about to do is going to be best. Philosophers have been looking at this kind of dilemmas, moral dilemmas for decades now, and one of the classic ones is the trolley dilemma. So if I'm the person stuck there at the lever and I can see that cable car, which its brakes have broken, is going to career into these 5 people and killing them, or do I intentionally adjust the pathway of the trolley and then I intentionally kill one person? So it's the moral dilemma. Do I let nature take its course and potentially there are 5 deaths, or do I intervene, which means I am therefore then responsible for the death of one person? Of course, these dilemmas are getting looked at by the machine programmers all the time now, because with automated driving or even augmented technology within our cars, etc., we're looking at what are some of the decisions that we make. So recalling past successes can boost our ability to trust ourselves. And just as an aside, if you're interested in all this moral dilemma stuff, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, have got this moral machine online. Over 2 million people have gone through these moral dilemmas. So what would you do if you were the driver of that automated car? And what that's what that's enabled them to look at is, how do humans make decisions under pressure when there's a dilemma? Neither of those outcomes are good, but what would we choose in that moment? Knowing what needs to be required can help us think straight. Dilemmas by their definition are tough. So purposeful practice can help us regain some confidence and get back in that decision-making game. And there are many kinds of decisions we have to make every day. Spotting them and labeling them as a decision could almost be the first thing in getting us kind of back in the game. So purposeful practice is where we're thinking, okay, there are some doors that potentially are opening around me. It may not be easy, but the more I do, more of that opportunity opening and taking the decision to say yes or give something a try, the better I get at that. So the less angst it causes me. And the more I then practice it, the more confident I get, which means I'm more attracted to doing more. And then I get better. And then the more I practice and the more confident I get, it then becomes this lovely, self-fulfilling, virtuous circle, purposeful practice. So how do I get confident to make decisions and spot opportunities? I might be so used to having the door closed, because that's what I've been doing, that actually even thinking about opening the door might require me to take a bit more conscious level of confidence, having trust in myself. Being able to make complex discretion-based decisions is useful for the long game anyway. It's likely that the simple stuff is going to be automated out throughout this decade, leaving more of the tricky stuff for us humans to deal with. So it's likely to be a high paid part of valued work in the next decade, this decade. Knowing what is required can help us to think straight. So a dilemma by its very definition is difficult. Unlike normal decisions that might be easier, it's quite appropriate for a dilemma to sort of stop us in our tracks. That doesn't mean that you're not good at decision making. It's a tricky decision in the first place. So what can help is purposeful practice to regain confidence and get that kind of decision making habit. Okay, so I've got a bit of confidence, or at least thinking that I might need to get a bit more confidence. How do I now search and scan what needs attention so that I address challenges and decisions with some like proper context? So I've got two menu options for you here. We've got a fruit bowl and we've got a sticky toffee pudding. What would you choose? Oh, it's a dilemma, isn't it? Well, so research has been done on the impact that appetite and delay of choice has on the decisions that people take. And I was interested in this because the Financial Conduct Authority used some of this research looking at what led to decision making in the run up to the 2008-2009 financial crash. And actually what the researchers showed is that their predictions were strongly confirmed. First off, if you're hungry, you choose the more unhealthy snacks than if you're satisfied. I think we all probably knew that deep down. But secondly, we're dynamically inconsistent. I'll choose a healthier snack for the future, but an unhealthy snack for now. So an advanced choice means I'm more likely to choose a wiser choice, whereas an immediate choice, I'm more likely to go for the unhealthy, the more desirable choice. So already we can see that even delay of time with our food choices changes the context around the decision I might make. So by recognising that our inner chimp, as it's called, I'll show the book in a sec, can be lured by emotion and impulses, it's a reminder that some of the information might be deleted or warped to kind of tempt us to either close a door or make a naughty choice as opposed to a wise choice, because we might not have even had a chance to think it through. So let's say it might be going through someone's mind, there's no way I can shift industries now. Really? Well, Professor Steve Peters, with this Chimp Paradox book, which, by the way, is the book that repeatedly people over the years have said has been life-changing, and they've just found it really interesting. So if you haven't come across it before, people really read it. And what he says is that in our brain, we've got these kind of different areas. So you've got the kind of the frontal brain that uses logic and facts to make decisions. You've got your computer brain that gives you references before decisions are made. And then you've got the big brain, which is the chimp, he calls it, which is the feelings and impressions to make decisions. And what he would say, along with lots of other neuroscience, is that actually when a bit of input happens, there's no way I can shift industries now. Our chimp might first come in before our human, more developed thought process. So the trick is to be able to kind of quieten that inner chimp by asking questions like, really? Says who? Think of your 3 transferable skills right now. Where else could they be of value? And that's an opportunity, that's a moment right there where the chimp is going, no, there's no way I can shift industries now. And then the human coming in, bit of your brain going, really? Says who? So getting that challenging bit. Sometimes we close down things before we've even had a chance to open it up. It's part of our survival kind of mechanism. The next then is to maybe stop, look and listen what is actually going on, and focus on the H and S that Deb Gann and I have come up with, which is the health, happiness and safety. Remember, easy decisions give you a harder life. The harder decisions, taking them gives you an easier life. So we're all becoming like our own health and happiness and safety managers right now. So we're having to think a little bit differently. Because actually, is the decision I'm about to make about my work life a simple patch-up job on what was already not right anyway? Were there actually already some gaps and holes in what I was doing? That although these have been extraordinary, unprecedented times, the gift of unprecedented times is maybe this is time for me to set some new precedents. Maybe there are some things that weren't quite right anyway. And James Reason wrote this just amazing book. He's the professor at Manchester Metropolitan University, and he's often used as an expert witness in human behaviour in horrendous disaster situations. So Hillsborough, Zeebrugge, King's Cross fire. So lots of examples that he then looks at in terms of what led to the cause of these accidents taking place. And so his idea is that challenging the small potentially prevents the big stuff building up. So if I'm putting up with a role that I absolutely detest, what might be some later health consequences of that? What might be the impact on my heart, on my blood pressure, on my the way in which my body works, if for decades at a time I'm doing a role that actually doesn't make me happy? What might be worth now, while everything is up in the air anyway, to challenge this, maybe the small stuff that I've been patching up on, to prevent maybe some bigger stuff happening? And he calls this the Swiss cheese model, which is accidents don't just happen. When big stuff happens, things that make the papers, there has been a trajectory of accident opportunity, i.e. something was waiting to happen, an accident was waiting to happen, where either individuals or organisations have ignored holes in the process. So let's say this is me putting up with a role that actually has not fulfilled me for years. I'm just going to keep putting up with it, and potentially that leads at a certain point in time where I might look back and go, what did I do 20 years? Where maybe now, because so much is bouncing around, we're thinking, actually, I wasn't particularly comfortable with the way I was working in that previous world anyway. Is there something I could now do a little bit differently, which bounces out of potentially something not so great that might be shored up in the future? So the Swiss cheese model, I think, is utterly fascinating, because what it gets you to do is to not cover up and patch up things that fundamentally might not have been right anyway. So maybe if you're thinking about taking some risks in your work life, maybe when you think about it, you were due for a change anyway. And could there be some things that actually were being patched up? So stop, look and listen, think about what actually might be going on. And the third thing is to maybe then consciously challenge options from different angles. So how can I remain as open-minded as possible before I start closing down in on a decision? Because the challenge us humans have is once we've reached our decision, we're then at risk of confirmation bias, which is I'll only look for other evidence that suggests my decision is right. So what can I do whilst I'm in this kind of open-minded bit, which might not be comfortable, but that where I can maybe make sure I consider things from different angles. So before I jump immediately to a no, maybe I need to just flex my dynamic risk assessment muscle, which is actually, what is the risk here? What is the hazard? So what is the hazard that could cause me some harm or loss to my life, whether that's income, opportunity, confidence, in terms of having to stretch your comfort zone if you're moving from one world to another? Well, what's actually the risk? And how likely is it that that hazard could actually happen? And how serious would the result be anyway? So the little maths then is the risk that I'm going to feel links to the likelihood. So how likely is it that that's going to happen, times the severity. So if actually when I stop and think about it, I think, well, it'd be a bit embarrassing if my CV got rejected. Well, what's the likelihood of that? Not the same as anyone else's. And what's the severity of a bit of embarrassment? Well, actually, when you think about it, compare that to a lifetime of resentment, it kind of pales into insignificance, really. So just before we jump immediately into a no, because there's the lure of wanting to be decisive, at that point then we're potentially closing down options, maybe just flex a bit of dynamic risk assessment. And before I maybe jump to an immediate conclusion, let me also just challenge the desire that we have to potentially make a shortcut decision. which is choosing the sticky toffee now because I'm hungry, as opposed to the fruit salad because I know that's better for me. And we tend, us humans, to pursue outcomes that are positive, immediate, and certain. So if something is sooner, certain, positive, so I'm just going to go back into what I was doing before because I'll probably get the result sooner. I'm certain that I'm going to be able to do something, and that's positive for me to feel like I've got something to go on to. But it might not be right in a kind of, it might not stand the test of time. It might be a shut thing. And the reason why we're sort of lured to that is you won't know until the end of your life whether that career choice was the best thing or the worst thing that happened. You won't know. It's uncertain whether it will be a good thing or a bad thing. You just know. And not knowing feels negative. So this is the sort of the decision-making environment we can find ourselves in, where we just think, oh, sod it, I'll just stick with the devil. And that's then what leads behind that. So what does this then mean that we can do to counter this? So even remembering that there are plenty of doors around, we might have just got lost in a passage recently. If I opened up an opportunity and visualised ahead just for a moment, what could it get me? Let me weigh up some pros and cons. Sometimes we have to take a risk, but I guess that's the gift of being alive. Dead people are risk-free, and it will never be perfect. Where could the leap of faith take us if we just trust ourselves? So these are a couple of things to maybe think about if there's a friend or a family member that's going through a bit of a dilemma at the moment, and challenging options for different angles keeps our mind open just enough to get a breath of fresh air in if we find ourselves close option. So how do I search and scan what needs done, being aware that the sticky toffee pudding is there? It might not be the right choice for us, but sometimes we make choices based on the context around us. So recognizing that our inner chimp is lured by emotion and impulses, and it can delete the information that we see, is worthwhile to remember. Stop, look and listen what is going on, and maybe focusing on the health, happiness and safety decision points that might be around us, and challenging options from different angles to keep as open-minded as possible before it closes. So our third aspect, how do I keep rational around when I'm handling all of these complex decisions and dilemmas? So let's just think about driving for a bit. We all know that we need to keep distance between the car we're driving and the car in front. And the 2-second rule is the way that we're taught to be able to keep that appropriate distance. But sometimes the more comfortable our environment becomes, the less rational our speed or distance may become. Because just imagine how much more likely someone would be to adhere to the 2-second rule if the steering wheel in their car had a spike at the end of it as opposed to an airbag. How differently might that influence someone's decision about whether to get closer or further away? So how do we keep as rational and grounded as possible without getting too swept away with some of the emotions that might be around us? So aiming for a balance of reason and emotion to create a mind for a sustainable decision. I know there's a lot of words there, but even just a good night's sleep can sometimes transform about how we feel about something or someone. So let's say a bit of an awkward or unplanned or unwanted team meeting that you may have had earlier on in the week. My brain might be whirring over and over in that, and sometimes a good night's sleep, we can look at it with a bit more balance and a bit more rationale. And I guess if we were to aim for something, I found this beautiful image online, I'll show you the link in a sec, of this reasonable part of our mind and the emotional part of our mind, and mixing those two sort of gives you the wisdom. So the emotions and the reason, bit of a balance with that, I could tend to get decisions stand the test of time and the intensity, so the pressure in which they're under. So there might be a logical reason to take a particular decision, but actually I might not be passionate about it. And actually, if I balance passion with logic, that might enable me to come up with a long-term series of decisions. And maybe the best decision right now is to not make a decision. And that's the decision in itself, waiting for more things to maybe come to light. So what does that mean that might be a useful skill? So this is taken from, you can see the link there, from a therapy play tools blog. So I thought it was a lovely image. So what am I observing? How might I describe it? And what's my participation in this? Am I watching or am I participating in my own life? And how might I observe, describe, participate? So as non-judgmentally as possible, The benefit of unprecedented times is we're all setting some precedents. How liberating. Being mindful, so focusing on it rather than getting too swept away with everything else, and how can I be effective? So there's some kind of outcome to the thinking that I'm having. So aim for that balance of reason and emotion to create maybe more wise, sustainable decisions. How, though, do I even ground myself in the first place to think straight? So it's all very well seeing these circles, but if I've got a whirlwind going on in my mind right now, because everything just seems to be up in the air, how can I think myself straight? How can I ground myself? So this is Deb's current favourite tool, and she's a number of times with me, and I'm sure she's done a number of times with people who have ever interacted with Deb's, and it just helps you to get into the right headspace to think things through. Because how come it's taken me months to make some of these really important decisions, and yet the panic is kicking in 0 to 60 under 4 seconds. So our brains have capacity to think very quickly sometimes, just not necessarily in the direction that might be most comfortable or useful for us right now. So how am I going to mindfully ground myself? And so this tool is where we consciously send thought to our feet. And for those of you who subscribe to our email list, if you're not already, let us know in the chat room. We'll make sure you're signed up. There's going to be a quiet read, as always, that accompanies the webinar, where there'll be more detail put on this particular tool. So to mindfully ground myself, so I'm going to consciously send thoughts to my feet. Then I'm going to breathe. I've got time for breathing. I've got to do more doing. Do more breathing. Am I grounded? So where are my feet? Right. Where's my breath? Right. Focus on breathing around my body. Okay. Slow everything down. Be in the present. Then I can actually start to make the decision to think about what might be worth moving forward. So one of her favourite phrases is, sometimes you just need to slow down to go faster. Be more like a tree. And check out this, the final bit then before we get into our wrap up, is something called the Vroom Yeton decision-making tool from 1973. I'd not come across this before. I think it looks an excellent way if you're currently toying with a massive decision that maybe involves a whole team or lots of people. So for the bigger, slower decisions, this may help to validate a reasoned decision. So let's say there's something that you're at a decision point. The team might be your family, it might be your professional, it might be a friendship circle, it might be your formal team at work or an informal project team. I'm going to show you a lot of sort of images on the slide, but if you have a look at the Vroom Yeton decision-making tool, I think this could be robust enough to help reach some decisions. So here we've got 7 points. So if you imagine each of these lines across, there's a yes and a no. So Y, N. So is the quality of the decision important? If actually the quality of the decision isn't important, yes, there's a few other bits. No, well then that gives you an outcome there already. I'll show you the 5 in a moment. So these little codes here link to what might be the suggested course of action dependent on these yes, no. So the second level is team commitment to the decision important? Yes or no? How does that then link to then where we're at now in terms of the decision points? So if it's not important, there we go, these ones. If it is important, there we are, those. Do you have enough information to make the decision on your own? Yes or no? Is the problem well structured? Yes or no? If you made the decision yourself, would the team support it? Yes or no? Does the team share the goals of the organisation? Yes or no? And is conflict amongst them over the decision likely? Yes or no? So if this really works for your brain, then have a look at it. It's fab. If you're looking at this and thinking, oh, it's too much, then just ditch it. But in terms of some of those bigger, slower decisions, what this allows you is to give you a bit of a course of action. So this autocratic decision making here, which is the quality of the decision isn't important, or the quality of the decision is important, but team commitment isn't, then actually you can make quite an autocratic decision. Is I make the decision, no input needed. And as you see, it kind of increases in the level of consultation as we go through. So autocratic, second one is I consult the team, but I make the decision. Consultative one, I inform the team, ask for opinions, but actually I'm going to make the final decision and we won't thrash it out online together. Consultative C2 is we get the team together, we seek their suggestions and we discuss it, but I still come back later with a final decision. And the collaborative G2, so we can see a couple of these here, is where actually my role here is to facilitate out with the team to reach a group consensus. And depending on the type of decision it is, will depend on whether collaborative is just going to create an nightmare because no one is going to enjoy that process or find it valuable, or whether the autocratic is far too closed for maybe what should be more of an open brainstorm decision. So if you haven't come across it before, the Vroom Yeton decision-making tool, loads of stuff online. I got this on the Mind Tools website, and I just thought it might be really useful for anyone who is currently considering a hefty decision that involves lots of people, and that could be your domestic or your professional team. So how do I keep rational and grounded when handling complex decisions and dilemmas? Aim for balance of reason and emotion to create wise, sustainable decisions, ground myself to think straight, and checking out potential decision-making tool to help you steer wisely and sustainably in the roads ahead. So increasing our confidence around decision making is potentially life-changing for our own individual lives and industry-changing at a team level. Just think of what we could achieve if we all made some really good decisions together over the next couple of weeks and months. The great thing about this skill is that we've been making decisions all our life. Humans are born problem solvers, but like any fitness goal, a bit of focus, effort, purposeful practice, and we can transform results for anyone and everyone. It's time to get ready, because as we reach the end of our Be Like a Tree series, from great oaks, from small acorns grow. So here we are, Stonehenge. Wow, thousands of years those beauties have been there, thinking of all the decisions and dilemmas and problems and challenges that have been surrounding humans as we've been going about our business over the last 5,000 years. So how do I keep human, stay foxy? What's going to boost my confidence to even spot the opportunity to make it in the first place? How am I going to challenge my thinking if I begin to close down some doors and options before I even had a chance to start? And how will I keep grounded when handling new complex decisions and dilemmas? So thank you for being part of series 4. Really looking forward to series 5. So watch out for that. We'll give you a bit of blurb on that soon. And keep human, stay free.